For 11 days every summer, hundreds of thousands of people converge on the city of Pueblo to enjoy a tradition that started almost a century and a half ago, the Colorado State Fair.
We have a very large carnival. It's the largest one in the Rocky Mountain region.
Educating kids about agriculture is at the heart of the Colorado State Fair, but the annual event in Pueblo boasts more than crops and livestock.
There's everything from pigs racing for Oreos to ostrich races.
Everything is quirky. You got to showcase those components and kind of keep it fun.
Where else are you going to see this?
I was shocked to see someone eat 28 sloppers.
It's the one time of year when calorie counting is a terrible idea, and every type of fair is fair game.
I mean, you're deep frying everything from peanut butter to Snickers bars and ice cream.
From humble beginnings as a horse show in 1872, Colorado's annual fair has grown into the most popular summer event in the state. Venture behind the scenes of this great spectacle to see how fun is made.
This program was made possible by the History Colorado State Historical Fund,
supporting projects throughout the state to preserve, protect, and interpret Colorado's architectural and archaeological treasures. History Colorado State Historical Fund. Create the future, honor the past.
with additional funding provided in memory of Deanna E. LaCamera and members like you. With special thanks to the Denver Public Library, History Colorado, the Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media, and to these organizations.
It draws nearly 500,000 visitors every year, but like most state fairs, the roots of the Colorado State Fair can be traced back to much smaller agricultural gatherings.
Different groups of farmers in a pre-internet television age found ways to meet every so often to share seed breeding techniques or how certain crops grow in a particular soil or the latest farm implement from their region of the country. It gave them an opportunity to kind of share that knowledge with each other. Also, bragging rights, right? I'm bringing the Rocky Ford cantaloupes to you.
You think of the prize bowl, the prize pie. Fairs have always been just a melting pot of the community.
Late 1840s to early 1850s, they maybe start off as just a crop show or a livestock competition, and then they immediately sort of blossom into bigger events, getting more people involved.
The New York State Fair in Syracuse was the nation's first state fair in 1841. State fairs in the 19th century promoted agriculture through livestock exhibitions and displays of farm products. Competition was woven into the fabric of fairs from the start, and even recruited people to new, sparsely populated territories.
As the fair spread westward, boosters and early government officials are looking for people to come in and populate places like Colorado or Minnesota. Hey, if you come here, you can raise the biggest livestock that's going to give you the biggest prizes.
Colorado had just become a territory when a group of leading farmers and promoters formed the Colorado Agricultural Society. The society held the first territorial fair northwest of Denver in 1866, but not every region was represented.
A lot of farmers in the Arkansas Valley and other places not near northwest Denver in the territory of Colorado kind of felt a little bit left out. So the farmers said, well, why don't we just set up our own more regional society? They began Pueblo and the Southern Agricultural and Industrial Society that then put together their first fair in October 9th of 1872.
So one of my favorite questions around the Colorado State Fair is, when did the Colorado State Fair begin? Pueblo had its first horse show in 1869, which was the origins of the 1872 fair. Colorado didn't become a state until 1876. So the question of when the first state fair was is, I don't know.
You have a Pueblo horse exhibition that drew in about 2,000 people. Those in support of 1872 as the starting date would say that's when it became more than just the horse exhibition. The first fair site for that 1872 date was a little bit north of Pueblo, outside of city limits. They wanted to get it basically in city limits, and so they chose the Mineral Palace site, and they hosted those fairs for about 15 years until 1886, at which point they became incorporated into the State Fair Association. Then they moved to the site west of Lake Minnequa. The Minnequa site wasn't very popular simply because it wasn't near enough or in close proximity to major rail lines or even the streetcars. It was kind of off the beaten path that basically only lasted until around 1900, when the current site was purchased by the State Fair Association. About an 80-acre plot that serves as the core still of the Colorado State Fair today. You could get there easily by a train, and therefore basically boomed into the State Fair as we know it today.
In 1888, the Colorado legislature designated Pueblo the permanent home of the State Fair. By then, Pueblo had not only prospered agriculturally, it had blossomed into a mecca of industry, centered around a steel mill and railroad hub.
The exhibits of what the steel city of the West is known for. You have major exhibits of some of the first steel produced in Pueblo at these early state fairs. Some people bring their cantaloupes, other people bring their steel, and it's all kind of part of Pueblo history.
Not only did this burgeoning city shape Colorado State Fair history, so did Germany.
And there's been a fair every year since 1872, except for 1 year.
In 1917, the state fairgrounds served as Camp Carlson, a training base for the Colorado militia during World War I. The fair rebounded in the 1920s, adding several new state-funded buildings.
You walk around this fairgrounds and you can just see all the buildings that were built in the early 1900s, and it has character. It's not the most modern facility, but it's architecturally is one of the cooler fairgrounds you'll see throughout the country.
Even during the Great Depression of the 1930s, the fair expanded through New Deal projects. This was at a time when 20,000 people attended. By the 1950s, 200,000 visitors would flock to Pueblo every summer. All the while, the fair stayed true to its roots.
That's the state fair. We fall under the Department of Agriculture. It's a great opportunity to connect rural folks with suburban and urban folks and connect them with their food. And someone who grew up in an ag family, to see people connecting with their food at all levels of society. It really is exciting.
Here at the fair, anybody at any age can come up and milk the cow. I love the kids. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna touch the dairy cow. But then once they actually get that milk out, the excitement that they did it and them learning where it comes from.
For a lot of the youth, it's the livestock showing with the steers and the sheep and the goats and the swine. That brings a lot of families across the state to the Colorado State Fair.
People participate from the whole state because we are towards the center of Colorado. I think 95% of the county is at the state fair. One of the main purposes of the state fair is obviously to showcase 4-H and FFA and those youth programs. Those have become the heartbeat of fairs and state fairs across the country.
I think when people first think about 4-H, they think of cows and cooking, but we've really expanded that. Most all the 4-H projects have STEM, science, technology, engineering, or math in them. We have about 2,000 exhibits, so those are 2,000 kids, and we get representation from almost every county in the state of Colorado, which is really nice. Back in the early 1920s, John J. Tobin was a legislator from Montrose, got $23,000 from the state legislators to build Camp Tobin, 2 permanent buildings at the Colorado State Fair, one for the boys and one for the girls. So what it was is to help families be able to participate in the state fair with not having to spend a lot of money. If you're from Montezuma or Weld County or whatever, the 4-H program is like a big family, so everybody helps everyone, no matter where they come from. I also think they learn how to connect with other youth from across the state. The kids learn about responsibility, finishing what you start. They learn mastery of skills because they've practiced and worked really hard to get to come to State Fair. In November or December, they'll pick out a calf. It'll probably weigh around 700, 800 pounds. From that time to whenever the fair is, they're hoping to make that calf weigh between 1,200 to 1,400 pounds.
The grand champion market steer of the Colorado State Fair. Here we go. 140, 50,000. 140, now 52 and a half. $50. Do. Are you done? They're done. Sold at $66,000 by the grand champion market steer.
The Junior Livestock Auction has raised over $10 million in scholarships since its inception. That goes directly to those youth.
The animal becomes their friend. They tell them all their woes and worries. They become probably their closest friend during that time. Sometimes it's really hard for them to let it go. The 4-H's are, and I'll say it through the pledge, I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world.
4-H is the largest youth development organization in the country and has had children learn by doing at the Colorado State Fair for over a century. Some adults have been going for nearly that long.
I've gone to almost every day of the fair for 70 years.
Fair veteran Jimmy Cook has spent decades collecting thousands of unique artifacts for the one and only Colorado State Fair Museum that he founded.
The clown barrels are really hard to find. This is the one I found below City Park. You never see them. These are all past rodeo queens. Some are Miss Rodeo Colorado, some are Miss Colorado State Fair.
The museum has not kept a record of the calories consumed on the fairgrounds. Just one fried turkey leg weighs in at nearly 1,200 calories.
When you think State Fair, you think of deep-fried battered corn dog. But I think that fried candy bars and the latest, greatest treat has evolved into what people expect at the State Fair these days.
And so when you can only get a deep-fried peanut butter sandwich once a year, that's a big part that makes it unique too. It's like, yes, we get to go to the fair and have our turkey leg and our oversized corn dog and our big lemonade.
Everybody wants to walk around like a caveman, you know, just with their stick of food. People often ask about healthy food options. We do have a lot of healthy food options here, whether it's kebabs, salad. I'd love to tell you that people look at the menu and choose that healthy food option, but I think people, when they're at the State Fair, they like to indulge a little bit. I'm sure there's some people buying the kebabs and the salads.
Decidedly undietetic fair food takes center stage in the competition ring, whether it's the traditional pie contest, the cinnamon roll bake-off, or a Pueblo original, the first annual slopper eating contest.
A world record will be set as to who can consume the most sloppers.
3, 2, 1, let's go!
Slopper is an open-faced cheeseburger smothered in Pueblo chili. And one of the really cool things about the slopper and our roots with agriculture is the ingredients of the slopper are all Colorado-based ingredients. You can use Colorado beef, Colorado wheat, Colorado dairy, and then obviously the Pueblo chili as the sauce.
Your winner with 28 1/4 Jadone Sloppers in 8 minutes. Darren Breeder! The winner!
It sure was an entertaining feat that was achieved. I think we have a new tradition.
Darren Breeder with 28 1/4. The great Michelle Lester.
We have cooking demonstrations and quilting demonstrations, and it's just so much of the past that we preserve.
The judging here is more like a popular vote kind of thing. This one is my module. I got reserve champion. I've been at this with this club for about 29 years. We are here to illustrate to visitors the craft that's involved in this hobby. We look at historical tidbits, if you will, of things that we become aware of through studying it or what have you. We employ the mixture of the real thing with our interpretation of what it could look like and put that all together, and it represents the Colorado narrow gauge lines.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, cast your eyes on the big screen.
Rodeo became the most popular competition at the state fair in the 1920s, eclipsing horse racing. The ranch hand sport still kicks off the fair today.
I'm Trey Yates. I'm a team roper, and I'm here competing at the Colorado State Fair in Rodeo. As soon as I was old enough, I competed here and roped with my dad several times.
It's Trey Yates of Pueblo, Colorado. Trey,
If you try rodeoing for a living, your hometown rodeo is pretty special. It's kind of fun just to participate in front of your hometown crowd.
Here we go.
Danger has always been a part of rodeos, but entertainment from the fair's early days was extreme.
There are things that were done in the past that probably are not acceptable today. One of those that comes to mind would be the high dive show where somebody rode a horse off of a high dive. Obviously that's not something that is humane to the treatment of an animal, but it's something that is in our past. We don't do the same entertainment that we did back in the 1800s. We've evolved to modern entertainment that reflects people's modern tastes.
There's definitely a lot more options for the urban or suburban dweller than there would have been in the early fairs. You have concerts every year now that fill up the bandshell and grandstand.
The state fair is surrounded by parade and festivity, which is awesome. The first parade that happens is the kids' parade. And then on the first Saturday of the fair, the chamber promotes the Colorado State Fair Parade, and that is a really big parade. It's also band day.
You have high school bands, you have cheerleading groups, you have all these different floats that are decorated.
The other thing is we have really strange attractions at the fair that you wouldn't see normally. This year we have a 90-foot high dive show. There's not many opportunities for folks to see that. Fiesta Day is by far our biggest day of the fair.
Fiesta Day at the Colorado State Fair is held Labor Day Sunday in September. And it's a day when Mexican and New Mexican culture is celebrated throughout the town.
Fiesta Day celebrates the rich Hispanic and New Mexican heritage that is a part of Pueblo's diverse culture. Founders George Sandoval and Henry Reyes started Fiesta Day in 1967, a tradition that many people in this region hold dear.
Actually, the first state fair I attended was in 1967 for Fiesta Day. If I've missed 5 state fairs since 1967, that's a lot. It just became a tradition. What's really neat about this is the rural communities that come to Fiesta Day from the San Luis Valley, from La Junta, from Canyon City. And it's really a reunion for families. It starts with a mariachi mass. Then there's a parade at 10 o'clock. They can have from 150 to 200 entries. You have thousands and thousands of people along the route. I love to watch the little girls looking up to the Fiesta Queen and wanting to be Fiesta Queen. She becomes kind of the face of Fiesta Day. She becomes the ambassador of promoting the culture. And then this becomes a goal. And so they do good in school and they learn a lot about their culture. People love the horsemanship of the charreada, which is a Mexican rodeo.
From Rodeo Company wearing them out. We've got a man down here who has got bears to all sides. We got one more right here. Look at these guys.
I call it a ballet of horses. It is different from an American rodeo because it starts off with kind of a march of all the horses. They do the Marcha de Zacatecas. It's just a grand mariachi. You don't judge these people that compete with speed, but with finesse and how well they do this. Because it's charros. The horse and them are almost one. They can make that horse do anything. If you want the horse to curtsy, it will. If you want the horse to go around, it's just such a beautiful event.
I think the impact of the State Fair has been huge, and that's evidenced by the fact that it's still around 150 years. That's why it's still here, right? I mean, it helped a lot of people settle in the region that we're in. It's been monumental in bringing industry in.
For the last decade, the fair has generated nearly $35 million in revenue annually to the state. There's been talk of relocating the Colorado State Fair to Denver, but Pueblo has no intention of letting its long-held tradition, or 500,000 fairgoers, go elsewhere.
It's something for the rural communities around Pueblo, because they threatened to take it to Denver. They can't do that, because what are the rural communities going to do? When I was researching the Colorado State Fair as a whole, I found that the original goal was to enlighten, instruct, and astonish. And I think that they're still doing that.
STEM is one of the things that we brought into 4-H to emphasize things that are needed in the world today for youth to be successful. We continue to evolve. I mean, 4-H has been here for over 100 years, so we keep continuing to be able to meet their needs and to help them become productive citizens.
One thing I really get enjoyment out of is seeing young families at the fair and 3-year-old or 4-year-old child who's just lit up with excitement, seeing things they've never seen before, and that family having that moment that they wouldn't normally have. The competition aspect of it, the leadership component, the community component, it's one of the last few Americana wholesome things left in our society.
Colorado State Fair just preserves the past and brings it to the present so that kids in the future remember this.
Who knows what's going to be in the future of the fair, but stay tuned and come to next year's fair and see what we got.